Much of the Middle East is praising that landmark agreement between regional rivals Saudi Arabia and Iran. The diplomatic breakthrough was mediated by China and announced in Beijing on Friday. Well, many in this region, and remember we are broadcast from the UAE, this is our Middle East broadcasting hub, many in this region are hopeful that that agreement can usher in a new era of reduced hostility in some of the region's most complex areas of conflict, such as Yemen and Iraq. The UAE, which was struck in January of 2022 by missiles and drones fired from Yemen by Houthi rebels, welcomed the agreement and said it valued China's role in the negotiations. Well, my next guest says there needs to be a trust-building period and actions on the ground to cement this agreement. Some may be sceptical of Saudi intentions or indeed call this a U-turn. Well, they are clearly not up to date with the kingdom's declared policy. Well, those are words of Faisal Abbas, who is the editor-in-chief of Arab News, and he joins me now live. Just let's pick that apart, if we will, and let's see if we can sort of expand on what you wrote here. You talk about the kingdom's declared policy. I think here you are talking about their policy of diplomacy first, a new era of diplomacy first, which you are seeing not just in this region, but around the world. Let's just talk about that, this new declared policy and how this agreement between Saudi and Iran fits into that.
Becky, first of all, thank you very much for having me. In the wise words of Sun Tzu in the famous book, Art of War, the best battles are won without fighting. So if this agreement can help us achieve our goals, get us where we want to be in 2030, and end this bloody chapter which we have lived through, the whole region has lived through for decades, then it's a win on all fronts. Now, there has been some geopolitical factors that has helped in the change or accelerated this process. As you might very well remember, in the beginning of the Biden administration, there were some not so reassuring messages sent when the Houthis were removed off the terror list and the Patriot batteries were withdrawn from Saudi Arabia at the time when our civilians and our cities were being targeted. For us in Saudi Arabia, we have a very clear vision. We are headed towards 2030 to diversify away from oil. We want world-class entertainment. We want to open up new sectors. And this is an opportunity, not just for Saudis, but for everybody in the world who wants to come and live here and contribute to this thriving economy. And we don't want anything to risk achieving that. Now, if Iran chooses to stay in 1979, that's their choice. But we certainly want to go to 2030, and we cannot have that with drones and missiles hovering over our heads.
There's two things I think we should explore here. Let's talk about the stickability of this deal between Saudi and Iran. And then I want to talk about the implications for the kingdom's relationship with the US, because some of what you've just been describing there very much sits in that bucket. Let's talk about Iran-Saudi relations. There have been years of hostility, and these are regional rivals who have, that rivalry has really created a lot of conflict and crisis across this region. So how does the kingdom expect to get this deal to strike? They've given Tehran 2 months before they reopen embassies. What do they need to see in those 2 months to fully believe that Tehran is on board?
Well, look, I think everybody, especially in this part of the world and especially in the kingdom, is clear-eyed, and Iran's history speaks for itself. Unfortunately, history has a way to repeat itself. So there's a lot of attention paid to the details, and this is probably why, as you just mentioned, the deal wasn't signed immediately. It was given 2 months, which I think is a very wise decision for the nitty-gritty or for the details to be agreed upon. Under no circumstances are we expecting to wake up the next morning and everybody's suddenly hugging each other. As I said earlier, this is a conflict that has been going on for decades. There has been previous attempts of rapprochement, but it has failed mainly due to Iran not sticking to their end of the bargain. But let's keep an eye on the ball here, what this could possibly achieve. By being a realist, if we want to be realists, this is a first step towards a very exciting future. You and I both live in this region. Imagine waking up one day without having a war in Yemen, without having a conflict in Syria, with a thriving Lebanon, with Iraq going back to its full potential. That would be a dream come true, and that would be good for the whole region and the whole world. What this is, it's a first step towards that direction, but I don't think anybody is expecting us to get there quickly, and I don't think anybody is expecting us to blink during the process. However, the most recent statement from the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, just today actually, is saying that is very reassuring in the sense that what they've said is this could possibly lead to a resolution in Yemen. And of course, nobody in their right mind wouldn't wish that that would be true.
What does this mean for the US? I mean, it is significant that this is a deal brokered by China. Both Iran and Saudi Arabia have an extremely good economic relationship with China. Does this suggest that that relationship gets broader? China as a guarantor of security going forward? China playing a larger role in the Middle East at the expense of the United States? What are your thoughts?
I think those who argue that point of view in the United States need to, what they call, take a chill pill for a second and look at it from kind of their own interest perspective. America has a lot to gain from a stable Middle East, not just in terms of market, but in terms of their own military and intelligence commitments to this part of the world. And to think of the passage through the Red Sea, maritime security. So this, first of all, first and foremost, is in the absolute interest of the United States to have a stable and secure Middle East. Second of all, it wasn't like the United States approached Saudi Arabia with a proposal to resolve this and it was rejected. But the mere fact is, if we put aside the sensitivities, which I don't think are necessary, this is a very logical step forward in the sense that the nature of these agreements have to be shrouded in secrecy for them to be successful. And the other thing is you need a mediator that is trusted by both sides. Now, China has no history of aggression or colonialism in the region. It's not like the United States or the UK or France even. It has, on most issues in the Middle East, it has remained impartial, focused on trade, on commerce. And most importantly, and I would say this is, the factor in this equation, it actually has leverage over China. China has actually leverage over Iran. It is Iran's biggest trading partner. It supplies Iran with nuclear technology, with military equipment and technology, and has invested billions in the gas and oil and gas industry in Iran. So if anybody has leverage over Iran, it is China. And this is why these talks were successful.